Curaleaf Holdings posting a beat on adjusted EBITDA for the second quarter on strong prospects for future growth. Of course, amid an outlook for comprehensive cannabis reform at the federal and state level. Joining us, we want to be welcoming now Boris Jordan, Curaleaf Executive Chairman. Always great to have you with us, Boris. And I mean, 166% growth in the second quarter total revenue. You're growing 20% quarter on quarter as well, sequentially. What's driving the growth as you see it now?
The American consumer. The American consumer wants more cannabis. It's an incredibly bipartisan issue. It doesn't matter what part of the country you come from. People want to have access to cannabis, and that's where we're seeing the growth. We're seeing it all over up and down the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest. And of course now for Curaleaf in Europe. And so, as you said, 166% growth year over year, over 20% growth sequentially, and profitability, 200% growth in EBITDA. So, we're having a very, very good quarter. We're looking forward to the rest of the year. We've guided $1.2 to $1.3 billion for the end of the year. And, we're preparing ourselves for 22 at this point in time. So, the growth story in cannabis remains very strong, even after the sort of loosening of the pandemic. There was a worry that there might be wallet spend competition. But so far, the cannabis sector seems to be holding up very strong.
There are quite a few states, Boris, I can go into and walk into a store and buy your products, buy other folks' products, including states not far from New York State, like Massachusetts here. New York legislature has already signed off on this thing. We haven't actually seen any real implementation of the recreational business here in this state. Do you anticipate any sort of changes anytime soon?
Well, I think let's start with New Jersey. New Jersey, we anticipate the governor has told us in both privately and publicly that he wants to launch the program in November. We know that the rules are going to be published at the end of August. And we're hoping for a start date sometime in November. So that's a very major state that's going to go adult use right around the corner. Connecticut has passed legislation as well. They're claiming that they're going to go adult use probably at the beginning of the second quarter, worst case, the beginning of the third quarter of next year. And New York was looking pretty difficult. Governor Cuomo was never particularly fond of cannabis. He was always stalling it. The only reason he signed the legislation because he was under pressure. And now, of course, that pressure has led to his resignation. And so we're hopeful, working with the next governor, lieutenant governor, we hope to accelerate the program here in New York and get it launched sometime next year.
Just to be clear, I mean, you think Kathy Hochul, of course, the lieutenant governor who will be taking over for Cuomo once he resigns in a couple of weeks here, do you think that her agenda is going to maybe prioritize this a little bit more?
Well, I mean, at least her interviews in the past have led us to believe that that's the case. Obviously, she hasn't spoken about it in some months. But, about 6 months ago, she did a wide interview on the subject matter, and she said that New York needs the revenues, and it's long overdue to pass adult use legislation. And so we're hopeful. Obviously, there could be some holdups because she's going to have to change people. She'll probably have her own ideas on how she wants to structure the regulations. But we do expect, hopefully, an acceleration of the program in New York, especially because both Connecticut and New Jersey and Massachusetts will have adult use cannabis, and New York will just be losing revenue to its neighboring states.
Boris, Curaleaf stock has still only jumped a little bit this year, given all the uptick you're seeing. What do you think the overhang is? Is it all regulation or something else?
No, it's we need SAFE Banking Act. We need the federal government to move on SAFE Banking Act, which allows cannabis companies to uplist to U.S. exchanges. I mean, it's the most outrageous thing I've ever seen. I mean, Canadian companies, South American companies, European companies can access our banking system, can trade on U.S. exchanges, whereas U.S. homegrown companies like Curaleaf, built in the United States by Americans, cannot trade on U.S. exchanges and cannot have access to U.S. banking. And so we trade on third-rate exchanges in Canada. Thank you, Canada, for at least having us, but nonetheless, still third-rate exchanges. And so we need federal regulation, and we need federal government to pass the SAFE Banking Act in order to let U.S. companies, but not only companies, individuals, employees of Curaleaf are having their bank accounts shut down in major banks because they work for a cannabis company. So, the rank and file, people that come out every day, they trim plants, they grow plants, they work in our retail stores, they manufacture our products, and they cannot get regular banking services. And that, in my opinion, is a travesty, and it needs to be fixed.
Do you think it might be fixed from a federal level? We've got, eyes on so many different things at the moment. Many people in the crypto sphere also feel issues in terms of banking regulation as well. And then many feel that perhaps the infrastructure bill has hampered growth in that particular sector. How do you feel the mood music is? Just swiftly, Boris.
Listen, I think very quickly, Schumer has, Booker and Wyden have pushed the bill into the Senate. That its comment period is over in September. We expect in the fourth quarter to get movement on that bill. My view is that we'll get a compromise bill by April of next year. So I do think this is a short-lived problem. I do think by April of next year, the federal government will move on this. We know we have the votes, at least for safe banking.
Yeah.
Some of the other issues in the bill that Schumer's proposed may be more difficult, but I do think in the end, through a position of compromise, we'll get it. And at the moment, the Senate seems to be compromising on a lot of things. So that's good.